not hearing a sermon that gives you a result. It's putting it into practice. How do you pray for finance? Prayer is like going to court, and so is governed by laws. This is how this earth was created. This earth where we live. This is how heaven is designed. This is how heaven is right now. And later the earth will return to that original place, structure that God designed from the beginning. And this is also how you and I are created. So you call it 4 dimensions of existence. Dimensions. And what is all this? Just to explain prayer. Just to explain prayer. So, do you see now there are 2 boxes, or should I call it rectangle? The bigger one is planet Earth. The whole Earth. Canada, America, Nigeria, Africa, Europe, everywhere. There is a smaller box inside. That one is called Eden. Eden. This one is Eden. This one is Earth. And outside Earth, this outside terrain is the universe. The Earth is like a dot in the universe, like a grain of sand. That's where you and I stay. This, our planet, as big as it looks, is not even up to a grain of sand. This small box inside is broken into 2 by a veil. So the whole box is Eden. While the inner part, this section, is Garden of Eden. Go to Genesis chapter 2 and show them. God planted a garden and the location was given to us. Genesis chapter 2, go there. God planted a garden and give the verse. He specified it was planted east of Eden because Eden is a continent that's picked out by God out of the whole planet Earth. Look at it. God planted a garden eastward in Eden. So you see the garden itself is separate. The garden part is what is called the Holy Land today. You have the garden, and then you have Eden, which is bigger than the garden. Then you have Earth, which is bigger than Eden, and then you have the universe, which is bigger than the Earth. If you look at it now, you see the 4 dimensions of existence. Because right here where you have the garden is where God put the Shekinah glory. And that's exactly where he placed man. Eden as a whole is also special. Because it's a special portion of land. Then finally you get to planet Earth. So, God planted a garden eastward in Eden. And there he put the man whom he has formed. And then right there in this part called the garden, go one step further. Yes, go one step further. Right there in the center here are two trees, the tree of knowledge. The whole garden is filled with trees, good trees. And out of the ground, the Lord made to grow every tree that is pleasant to the eyes, good for food. The tree of life also is in the middle of that garden. The garden is what we're looking at now. And then there is another tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the one they were told not to eat. All the trees they can eat. What God did was to take everything that is in heaven, all those wonderful, and planted them here. And say, have all of them. Enjoy heaven on earth. But this one in the middle, stay away from it, or you lose everything. Anyway, they disobeyed God. And then go to chapter 3. God sent them away out of Eden. And then placed a cherubim east side of Eden. The Lord sent him, that's the man, forth from the Garden of Eden. Now take note, they were driven away from the Garden of Eden. And they are now to go until the ground from whence he was taken. So he sent him forth from the garden to till the ground. Then watch. Because in Eden, they were not tilling. No. Their agriculture is different from how we are doing it now. This trying to... Agriculture there is technology of heaven. They were to tend and dress a garden that has already been planted. Now they have to go and grow their own food. God planted a garden in Eden, and he put man that he has formed there. Look at his purpose. God took man, put him into the garden. You see where he put him before? The garden. What is his job? Dress it and then keep it. Do you know what is keeping a garden? Eh? Do you know what is dressing garden? No planting. God has already done the planting. Read Revelation 21 and 22 and see how heaven is. It's a garden city. It's a paradise. What God created here is also another paradise. Earthly version. Earthly paradise. Just like heaven. And he comes down to this earthly one every day. His Shekinah glory, the same way it is in heaven, was here. On Mount Sinai, he stayed for some days because God was talking to Moses. In Eden, it was permanent. And these guys lived 7 years inside this garden. Anybody that lives there, because of that Shekinah, no death, no sickness, no nothing. If you see how the trees grow. In Eden, for example, they don't have rainfall. This garden, they don't have rainfall. His job is to dress and then keep a garden that is already planted. Like if somebody do greenhouses, plant beautiful tomatoes, carrots, apples and all that. And your job is just to manage it. Just look after it. You're a gardener, but they've planted everything for you. And the crops are not just one time, they give you one harvest, they die, so you can start replanting. No, they are permanent. They don't die. They bear fruit, one harvest every month. You are going to harvest 12 times in a year. There was not supposed to be any struggle until rebellion came in. Until today, disobedience is what is causing all the problems. We need to go back, because that's what Jesus died to give us. Go back to Eden. Is living under grace, not under toil, not under stress. That's the message I'm trying to get to you. There is living under grace and living under divine. That's how your finance, your prosperity is supposed to be. The redeemed man and the unredeemed man are not in the same level. One has access back to Eden and back to the garden. Meanwhile, what is this Garden of Eden? Now, this thing I drew for you, this is exactly how Solomon's temple is designed. Do you remember Moses' tabernacle? And this is how Solomon's temple is designed. And this is how heaven, where God lives now, is designed. When Moses was building this, God took him and showed him the heavenly paradise and told him, see to it that you design the earthly prototype according to the pattern shown to you. And this is how you and I are designed. This is how you are. This part where the Shekinah is the human spirit. This part that covers, that is Eden, is the soul. These bigger parts, that is planet Earth, is the body, the human body. This part in the temple of God is the Holy of Holies. This part that we call the soul is the holy place. This part that is the outer court is the outer court. Then this vast part, universe, is called the outer darkness. Anybody left here is under the rule of Satan. Anybody here is under Satan's rule. It's outer darkness. The Bible uses it to talk about those that will perish, those that will go to hell, and all of that. So once you leave the garden, you are in Eden. You are still in a beautiful place. Once you leave Eden, you are now in the planet called planet Earth, where you walk with labor. That's where we fell to. The disobedience landed us. Is this outer part called, yes. You are now in Earth. Disobedience landed man there. And here now you have to labor and till. You're no more operating where divine provision is. But if you now move beyond here, you are in outer darkness. Even when Jesus returns and the earth is back under, these three positions will be back. This part will still have the Shekinah, and that's where he will govern from. This part will be a powerful, beautiful paradise continent, and then the rest of planet Earth will enjoy peace and the reign of Christ, and then there will be outer darkness. So, answer my question. Where do unbelievers operate from right now when it comes to the temple of God, the presence of God? Where do they operate from? Holy of Holies or where? They're in outer darkness, under Satan's rule. You can imagine that's where we are going to go and pull them and bring them into the outer courts. And in this outer court, the first thing you have once you are here is the brazen altar. That brazen altar is the cross. That is the tool we use to cross people in. Once they are in the outer court, they are within the kingdom sphere. But now, remember, in the outer court, everybody there is a baby. Everybody there is carnal. So outer court Christianity is carnal Christianity. If you progress to the holy place, you have moved to soulish Christianity. If you now move to the Holy of Holies, you are now a spiritual man. And that's where the impossibles become possible. That place called Holy of Holies is from where we rule this world, from where you control. The man in the holy place just has developed his mind. He has a lot of knowledge. The man in the holiest of holies is walking in the presence of God. The man in the outer court may be a Christian, but he's still governed by his flesh. He's controlled by the flesh. Even when I ask you guys to pray, I could see some people, A prayer was like fight, because it's flesh-dominated life that they are living. They are believers, but they still live in the outer courts. So in the days of Adam, this is where they will be living. Adam and God will be meeting here. And when Adam comes, he can give them the gist. They don't know what happened. They are not spiritual. They live in the flesh. Meet basic needs of the flesh. Controlled by the flesh. They are controlled by their emotion. They are ruled by their five senses. They are carnal. But they are God's children. They are better than the unbelievers that are out there completely. But you see, the problem with this outer court is that that's not the life God called us to live. Please go to Revelation. Outside the city are this list. You see the list given. The fearful, the unbelieving, people that are abominable, people who commit abomination. Leviticus 18 and 20 listed what the Bible calls abomination. Incest, sleeping with animals, men sleeping with men, women with women. There is a complete list there. People who commit them. Warmongers, murderers, idolaters, and whosoever loves and maketh a lie. Look at their part. Yes? Next verse. Revelation 21. They shall have their part in the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone, which is second death. You've seen hell. And a list of people that will go there. But what is missing is, where is the location? Is it not missing? It's missing in this particular record. So go to chapter 22. Outside the city are this list again. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. If you start from verse 1, it's describing that paradise. And what we're looking at is here. It's describing heaven and all of that. Okay? And even when you get to heaven, there is still the holy city, the heavenly Jerusalem. You are not in there yet. And some people won't enter that one. If you get to earth, does it mean you are in the earthly Jerusalem? Jerusalem is about 7 hours flight from here. But I'm on earth already. The same way you can get into heaven, you have made heaven. But you're not in the heavenly Jerusalem. I just explained it to you that you can be in Eden, but you're not inside the garden. And you are fine. You are in a good place. You have made it. Because it's a wonderful place. And be watching those that have been to heaven. You are already in heaven. You are inside because it's a very big place. It's a planet. But when they take you to this holy city built for the saints, it's unoccupied. You will see mansions, but it's unoccupied. You know why? Nobody's entering yet until we're ready. But you will see all these different mansions, the reward that will be given to us, and all the other wonderful things. Right now, if you are a soul winner, if you are investing a lot in intercession, there are 5 groups of people it's being built for. If you're investing a lot financially in the kingdom, if you're walking in righteousness and holiness, your mansion is being set up. These are very serious things. So it is now the sacrifices you are making, the souls you are winning. Those things are being converted to values that are used to develop the type of reward you'll be given. It doesn't mean that those in Eden will not have, you will still be happy that you made it. So this is what I was talking about, this holy city, the new Jerusalem. The way there is a Jerusalem on earth, in the midst of earth, there's also a Jerusalem in heaven. The whole heaven is not Jerusalem. coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride. I had a great voice out of heaven say, behold, the tabernacle of God is with me. And this is where God will live with people. He will dwell with them. They shall be his people. God himself shall be with them and be their God. Verse 4. God shall wipe away every tear. Okay, go on. Verse 5. Just want to show you some of the technology that will be there. Okay, verse 6. Yeah, so you see this river of life again flowing in there. Yes, verse 7. Okay, 8. But now after describing the city, he now describes hell. So the location of hell. Chapter 22, verse 14. It shows the holy city, yes? Blessed are those that do his command, that they may have right to the tree of life and enter in through the gates into the city. Verse 15. But without, everyone say without. That's what it's called. You notice that Jesus keeps using this term, outer. Without are dogs, sorcerers, that's witchcraft, warmongers. These are adulterers, people who sleep with, outside the marriage. Murderers, idolaters, and whosoever loveth it and make it a lie. If I show you one more, maybe you will sink. This outer darkness and its location. It's amazing that when you are traveling to heaven, on your journey through space, it's so dark. Except that usually there are angels that conduct us through the journey. Because second heaven is the outer darkness surrounding the real eternal heaven where God lives. And that second heaven is populated with demons. Fallen angels, by the way. It is so dark. But as you patch, there's something they call the dark hole in science. The black hole. You have to pass that to now, on top of that, at the end of it, is a planet. Shiny, beautiful. That planet is what is called heaven. And it's located on the northern pole of the universe. Behold, I create a new heaven and a new earth. Just for you to see how the design is. The former shall not be remembered nor come into mind. 18. Be ye glad and rejoice for that which I create. For behold, I create. You see, there will be Jerusalem again there. Even on earth again, there will be Jerusalem again. I create Jerusalem and rejoicing and have people enjoy. Verse 19. And I will rejoice in Jerusalem and joy in my people. And the voice of weeping. You see what I just read in Revelation. No more weeping, no more. The voice of weeping shall no more be heard, nor crying. Yes, 20. There shall be no more an infant of days, nor an old man that had not fulfilled his days. For the child shall die 100 years. So what's the meaning of that? Even in the new earth, the people who live here, they will be natural men, they will have children, and they can still die. The only difference is, before you die, the minimum number of years you live is 100. No matter, even if you commit crime, you cannot be executed till you reach 100. After 100, the capital punishment can be carried out, and then men will have capacity to live for 1,000 years again. But the people that live in Eden cannot die at all. They don't even marry again. They don't have children. They are like angels. You heard that we are going to rule with Christ. Who are we going to be ruling? Natural men. Human beings like the way you are now. They were not thrown into hell, but they are not saints. So they are allowed to live on the earth. And you can see that some of them still have capacity for evil. Watch. There shall not be thence an infant of days. That's a child dying while you are a child. Nor an old man that has not fulfilled his days. For the child shall die 100 years. The sinner, do you see now? They still have capacity to misbehave. The sinner being 100 years shall be accursed. That's when they will be judged and they die. But we will be ruling the people here, but this is where our own domain is. The holy city, that city. Now, look at verse 21. And they shall build houses, inhabit them, they shall plant vineyard and eat. So these people here will be planting and growing their crops, building their house. The people here, everything is already built for them. I told you about those mansions. Which one do you want? You want to be building your own real estate, or you want to live in the one that God designed and built? Which one do you want? You want to be farming and be tilling the ground, or you want to live in a garden city? Which one do you want? Pay the price now. Watch verse 22. They shall not build and another, which is very wonderful. Justice will be there. They shall not plant and another will eat. For as the days of trees, so shall be the days of my people. That's 1,000 years anyway. My elect shall long enjoy the work of their hand. Then verse 23, because people wonder, they shall not labor in vain, nor bring forth for trouble. For they are the seed of the blessed of the Lord, and their offspring with them. Then verse 24. Now, people wonder, will there be things like prayer? Will there be worship? Will there be church after this word? All of these are eternal. They will continue. What are we going to be praying about? Why should people who have made it still need to pray? Let me tell you something. Prayer is communion. It's communication. The major reason, there are 7 purposes of prayer. The major reason it was even created is not so much about binding demons or meeting needs. Is the basics for relationship. God wants to have a relationship with his people, so there has to be. What's the use marrying a wife, having children, and there's no talking? God wants fellowship. God wants intimacy. And then we come to another segment, aspect of prayer. Because this is family life, the father and his children. Even in a perfect family, there will be need to sometimes make requests from your father to get some extra, apart from the general provision. They've paid your school fees, you get your food, you have your hair. I wish Adam asked instead of just going to take the tree. Who knows what the reply will be? Maybe he will get further information, or maybe he might even be permitted. If it's something that will destroy him, they will tell him no. But this is why. He will get further clearance. And I'm sure you're seeing now, it shall come to pass. Before they call, what will happen? I will answer. Why they are still speaking? It's not this one you pray and wait for 2 weeks, or 1 month, or end of the year. As the thing is still in your mouth, pia. How many would like to be there? Nothing can make me miss heaven. No. I will drop it. I will give it up. I don't care what it is. It shall come to pass. Before they call, I will answer. Why there? So you see, there will still be prayer even after we have been. This is new heaven, new earth. Sure, you followed me when I started reading. Now let's go down to verse 25. Okay, you know about the wolves, lion and sheep dwelling together. No animal killing each other anymore. You know about this one. I don't need to explain it. Just exactly the way it was in the Garden of Eden. Those animals were not carnivorous. Everybody is herbivorous. Everybody feeds on grasses. That's what he's talking about here. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. Okay? As the new heaven and the new earth, which I create, shall endure before me. That means it's going to last forever. It will not be destroyed like this one. You know, this earth will be destroyed with fire. Yeah. I just want you to know we are still discussing this. For as the new heavens and the new earth, which I make, shall remain before me. Meaning it will not be destroyed. Said the Lord, so shall your seed and your name remain. Okay? Verse 23. It shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, this is monthly. And from one Sabbath to another, this is weekly. all flesh shall come to worship before me. Now, that has been established. There will be prayer there, there will be worship, and there will be services. Now, where is the location of hell? Watch the next verse. When you are leaving the service, look at verse 24. When you are leaving worship, as they go forth, they will look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me, for their worms shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be an abhorring unto all flesh. So to have a warning to everybody that makes it in eternity. So there is no future rebellion and all that. God makes the lake of fire outside the gates of paradise. It's not like it's outside. As you are leaving to return back to your different domains, you will be able to see it. That new era, there will be no sea, no ocean. That space that was carved for it will be filled with liquid fire. And that's where men that rebelled against God will be burning. Right now, the present hell is under the earth. Then it's going to be on the surface. Even now, as I'm talking, hell is also on the surface. Even though it's inside the earth crust, we call it the earth core, where you have volcano. There are some parts of the earth where it comes out on the surface. If you don't know where hell is, it's right inside the earth crust. Yes, that's where it is. But the lake of fire that will go with the new will be brought to the surface. So God wants everybody. All these ones, some people died, are telling you what's happening there. They want everybody to see for yourself. And if you now want that, you can try it. To God most high. Hallelujah. Can you imagine? Here we don't hear much preaching about hell. But in eternity, you're going to be seeing it every week. Once a week. Before you are almost forgetting. You just finish worshiping the presence of God. Because you see, worship is not enough to restrain people. The children of Israel had a glory crowd over them, yet they will rebel against Moses, and many of them died. Hallelujah. To God. If worship restrains people, the leader of worship in heaven will not have rebelled. You guys must lead worship on earth and join to continue in heaven. And those of you that worship must worship in spirit and in truth, so that you will go from earth to eternity. This liquid fire is what is called hell. God created it for fallen angels, and now human beings are going there. A lot of work has been done. They have found that in many active volcanoes where they are digging into the earth and they meet voices, millions of people crying. And equipment pick it up because it's not in the spirit, it's real. Yes. There are 4 rivers that came out from it, and they are flowing. All of them are still on earth, and you can trace them to their source and trace them to wherever they flow to. Yeah. These are not a story. The 4 rivers, from River Tigris to River Euphrates to River Nile to River Ethiopia. Yeah. The Nile is one of the rivers that came out of the Garden of Eden. And all the rivers move in different directions. And there's only one river in the whole world that travels northward. Only one in this whole world is River Nile. Is the tithe of planet Earth. God took tithe of the land space. He called it Eden. He took tithe of our weeks. He calls it Sabbath. And he takes tithe of our finances. That's what he does. he takes tithe of the human population, he calls them priests. If you notice, there are 12 tribes in Israel. He went and took one, the Levites, and the whole tribe, priests to the rest. That's what God does. God created all the nations on earth. He took one, Israel, to be a holy nation, a priestly nation to the rest. Now, what God has done with you and I by calling you a peculiar people, a royal priesthood, a called out people, ecclesia, is tithe of the planet. And our job is to be priests to the rest of human beings. Where he's called out people, selected people, peculiar people, the ecclesia, like a bride. And our mandate is to be priests to the rest of humanity. You can't live like them. You can't marry them. You are breaking the law. You cannot be indulging in their culture and their bad lifestyle. You cannot do that. Your job is to teach them, be an example, a light, a salt, a standard for them. If you start living like them, you end up where they will end up. And that's what happened to Israel whenever they start copying the hidden instead of being a light to them. So when a person eats his tithe, you are behaving like Adam that went and ate that part that they said don't touch. Everything provided here are yours. Why is it just that one that God said for himself that you want? So he eats it, he loses the whole garden. He has to move to where he has to toil and labor. The same thing happens when we eat what is sacred. We move into toiling and stress and a lot of things that are not necessary. Some people even operate here where Satan controls their finances. It's terrible. Anybody there needs deliverance. Here is bad enough because here is labor and toiling. But here is financial bondage. You are like the children of Israel in Egypt. You are laboring under oppression, extreme poverty, and a lot of problems. But here is toiling. You can earn a living, but you just have to till your ground. But when you move into the second box, it's not that you don't work, but you walk under grace. There is supernatural provision. There is supernatural provision. There is supernatural provision. And that's where you must operate from. That's where, in a country like this, with all the things happening, not to be victim of the times, you need to function under open heaven. You need to function under supernatural grace, supernatural abundance. You need to function under. Angels and their ministry needs to be behind your career, your profession, or whatever you are doing. And the man that does that has to be a giver. So he's not a toiler. Hallelujah. A river went out of Eden to water the garden. And from thence it parted and became into four heads, four rivers. Look at it. Verse 11. The name of the first is Pison. This one passed through the land of Havilah. Yeah, go on. 12. A lot of precious stones. Yeah, 30. The name of the second is Gihon. That's the one that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. Yeah. The only river that travels north is Nile, River Nile, River Nile, River Nile. Yeah. Yes, the next one, 14. The name of the third is Hiddekel, which goes towards the east of Assyria. The fourth is Euphrates. The third branch is called Tigris, River Tigris. And the fourth is Euphrates. The very city where Adam lived And where is the city of Adam? It is not Garden of Eden. It's not Garden of Eden. It's east of the Garden of Eden. Therefore, God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground where he was taken. And he put a cherub. Go to that next verse. He placed at the east of the Garden of Eden what? So he put security here because that's where one of the gates is. You know what the purpose of the cherub is? To prevent him from going in. So he put it east of the garden with flaming sword to keep the way to the tree. So he doesn't go back there and eat the tree of life. There are two trees. This one, you eat it, you are immortal. You never die again. This one, you eat it, you die. Satan told them to eat the poison. So now that they've eaten the poison, death has come. Their eyes are open. They will want to go and eat this one to neutralize it. So they put no more access to the garden. But they didn't stop them from being in Eden. So let me show you now the city of Adam. Okay, before I show you the city of Adam, I think it will be good to show them in Genesis chapter 4. Man is now living outside the garden, but he's still in Eden. Okay. Don't think. I showed you where Eden is. It covers the whole Middle East. Don't think when they were kicked out, they left the whole Middle East, maybe landed in Africa. They were still there. That's why you still have human beings living there till today. But they were no more in the garden. Cain kills Abel. That's the part. And God declares punishment on him. And then Cain said, left the presence of God to the city of Nob. He went and built a city. Read it, Genesis 4. Why is it that the place he left is called the presence of God? In other words, the glory of God was still affecting the whole Eden. Cain went from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, east of what? Not east of the garden. East of what? They all moved eastward. He didn't even stay with his father because I have it on record. He left where Adam, his father, was staying and moved further to start his own city and all of that. Now, to leave you with something to be thinking about. The day Joshua led the children of Israel to begin to possess the promised land, they had to cross a river. What is the name of the river? How many of you know? River Jordan. That river where Jesus was baptized. You know, it's easy for me to discuss all this. I have been to the promised land. You need to visit and see all these things I'm talking about. The Bible will come alive. You realize a lot of things you are reading happened. Okay, when we were at Jordan, they took us to the spot where Jesus was baptized. And you might shock you, the very spot where he was baptized was the spot where this man took the children of Israel across and baptized them in Jordan. And how do you know? Because Joshua, when the river divided, Joshua told them to bring 12 stones and bring them out here and set up a monument. And he said, take 12 stones also from the land and bury it at the foot of Jordan. And they did. He said so that it will be a memorial for future generations. When your children ask you, what is the meaning of all this stone monument? You tell them that God divided this river for the children of Israel to pass. It was there Jesus stood one day and said, God is able to raise out of these stones children for Abraham. One day he even said, if you stop the children from praising God, he will. Now, here is the point. The Bible says when the priests were carrying the ark, when their foot stepped on the water, they were carrying the ark. The water divided. Ladies and gentlemen, watch now. River Jordan divided and traveled back the water to the city of Adam. So you want to know where Adam lived? Visit Jerusalem. Visit River Jordan. It traveled back and stopped at the city of Adam as those that bore the ark came onto Jordan as a priest. And the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped in the brim of the water, for Jordan overflowed all the banks. It's the time of harvest, like rainy season, it happens to rivers. Okay, verse 16. That the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon a heap very far from the city of Adam. And that is beside Zerutan. It's giving you location. And those that came down towards the sea of the plain, even the source, it failed and were cut off. And the people passed right into Jericho on dry land. You know, rivers flowed down. The ones that were flowing went back, stood at the city of Adam and froze. They stopped flowing. The ones that were now to continue in the sea now dried up, went down. Because if no more water is flowing now, what happens to river? It dries. That one flowed away. That's what it means by it failed. It flowed away down. And the one coming stood like a wall. So it's now dry land. The people had to pass. In the Red Sea, it was different. In the Red Sea, the water divided and created two walls. Two frozen walls. People passed in between. So you can see where Adam lived. When he was kicked out of the garden where he lived, you are trying to locate where Eden was. The Holy Land today is part of Eden. So even though man has failed, but that land, God was still guarding over that land. Later he gave it to Abraham and his descendants. Cain went out from the presence of the Lord. So somebody asked me, where did he go? Here. Just the normal earth. But he moved in this direction. And his part of his suffering, assignment, and course is that he will have a lot of problem tilling the ground. And when he tills, instead of yielding harvest, even Adam in a fallen state could till and get good harvest. But this guy, when he tills, it's torn and twisted and a lot of problems. The guy said the punishment was too much for me. He told God. And the place he operated, the presence of God is not there. Any life outside God's presence is life outside grace. You are open to danger. You are open to a lot of problems. Jesus, oh Jesus, Jesus, oh Jesus.
Camp Meeting 2022 is here again. The time to seek God's face and experience the move of God's life-transforming presence has come. Theme: the day of His power.
before I spoke a word.
Ministering Dr. David Ogbueli and other anointed ministers of God. Date April 14th to April 18th, 2022.
So good to me.
Join us in an atmosphere of ecstatic praise and pure worship.
Breathe your life in me. You have been so kind to me.
The word, deliverance, healings, miracles, and breakthroughs.
Reckless love of God.
Thank you for that revelation of the cross. Thank you for opening my eyes. I honor you with everything in my being. I honor you with my life.
Don't miss out on this chance to transform your life forever. Anticipate camp meeting.